Welcome to episode 46 of the PKD Dietitian Podcast. I'm Diana Bruin, the host and creator, but also the PKD Dietitian. Today, we're diving into the world of oxalates and crystals, an area of PKD nutrition that I find is often muddled, fear-mongered, and overwhelming for many PKDers. The good news is that oxalate management for PKD health doesn't need to be any of these. Let me explain. But first up, what exactly is an oxalate? Maybe you have heard of them. Most folks I talk to have, but they're not quite sure what it is unless they've done some research or perhaps have had a kidney stone. Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds in plants. They also can be made by your body as a waste product during normal body metabolism. What's important to know is plants need and use oxalates, but as humans, we don't. The key word there is it's waste for humans. Most plant-based food has oxalates in them, but it comes in a whole range of amounts. Some fruits and veggies and even nuts have a higher oxalate load, and some have barely any at all. This means that your dietary and supplement choices can 100% impact the oxalate load you are consuming. Sounds scary, but believe me, it doesn't need to be. If you Google oxalates online or oxalate list, you will pull up 1,000,001 different lists trying to answer the quote-unquote how much is in it question. No wonder they are so confusing. Which source should you trust? What is considered high oxalate load for PKD? How much oxalate is too much? These are questions I get asked all the time. You might be wondering why I am talking about oxalates on a podcast dedicated to nutrition and polycystic kidney health. There's a connection, folks, and that lies in the potential for oxalate crystals to cause some injury or additional stress to your PKD kidneys. Now, I'm pretty darn confident that neither of those are on your to-do list with PKD. Having a high level of oxalates in your urine running through those kidneys can do two things. It can increase your risk for forming a kidney stone, and it can also trigger pathways in your kidneys that we know drive cyst growth. Understanding and managing oxalates for PKD health can be both proactive in preventing injury, but also preventative regarding kidney stones, especially if you are a kidney stoner who has already made stones, and those include calcium oxalate stones, because a kidney stone equals kidney injury. Do note, though, that this is only one part of kidney stone prevention. If you are a stoner, make sure to check out episodes 4 and 5 of this podcast, linked out in the show notes. It's my 2-part series on PKD, stones, and what nutrition can do. So the big question now is, should you restrict foods with oxalates? Essentially, should you restrict oxalates? You might be surprised by my answer, because it's no. I don't want you to restrict oxalates. You would be cutting out way too many beneficial foods with perks for PKD. You would be really limiting your intake of fruits and vegetables and anything plant-based. There is no benefit to you in trying to restrict your oxalate intake. That is, unless you are a kidney stone former and have been told by your doctor to do so and been given specific instructions. Instead, what works for PKD health is oxalate management. Now, right about now, you're probably thinking, well, what's the difference between oxalate restriction and management? So I'm going to tell you, there's a whole lot of difference. To show you, I'm going to explain a little bit on how to manage oxalates. Oxalate management is proactive and protective for PKD. It's not supposed to be restrictive. Let me briefly outline my 3 steps and the things I look at with clients to simplify oxalate management. After years of working with PKDers like yourself, I have been able to hone in on what's important around oxalates, what's working, and how to simplify oxalate management for PKD to make it easy, because that's what we want. We want to make a few changes based on good education and good knowledge and keep moving on with life, knowing that you are doing something good and not hurting your kidneys. So here are the 3 steps. Step 1, we look at consumption. What are you eating that's high in oxalates? How much? And what are good replacements if it's needed? Part of step 1 in consumption is really having a good list that's trustworthy for oxalate numbers, but also knowing your parameters. They're not as tight as you think. The second step is looking at oxalate absorption, and there are some tricks you can do to make sure that you're not absorbing too many oxalates that you're eating and they're not getting sent to your kidneys. And the third step is looking at excretion, and this one kind of piggybacks off of step 2, and excretion is how are we getting rid of oxalates, and you actually get to direct how your body's getting rid of them. So those are the 3 steps to managing oxalates. 1, looking at consumption. 2, looking at absorption. And 3, directing excretion. Of course, there's more details within these, but it can be really easy once you learn how and why and make a few changes. You will be on your way to getting rid of any stress or questions around oxalate management. By understanding what oxalates are and where they come from and how they can affect PKD, you can take proactive steps to manage them through dietary choices and lifestyle adjustments. Now let's go back to those questions I mentioned earlier. What source should you trust? What is considered a high oxalate load? How much oxalate is too much? Well, I want to extend a special invitation to you. I am hosting a live workshop about oxalate management for PKD with the goal to make it easy. So join me if you want to understand what oxalates are, if you want to know how they are connected to PKD progression in a bit more detail, if you want to get trustworthy oxalate resources and learn my 3-step framework to easily manage them. We're really going to focus on making oxalate management easy so you can stop questioning your intake and you're finally going to get the answers to your oxalate questions. It's a 75-minute workshop. Of course, there's going to be Q&A afterwards with me. Y'all know I love some good questions. You're going to get printable oxalate sources, my tried, true, and trusted oxalate list, but really the step-by-step on how to easily manage oxalates for protective and proactive nutrition. Last but not least, it's all going to make it easy. No more stressing, no more worrying. Join me. It's July 31st Eastern Standard Time at 6 p.m. Of course, there will be a replay if you are unable to make it live. Special for you, my podcast listeners and followers, use the coupon podcast to get 25% off. I hope to see you there. Of course, all the links and resources to enroll are in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PKD Dietitian Podcast. Stay informed, stay healthy, and see you next time.